Hi, I'm Paul.
And I'm Matthew.
And welcome to Skip the Rulebook's Kickstarter preview. Today we're fighting for control of a post-apocalyptic world populated by savage gangs in Wreck and Ruin.
With civilization fallen, your aim is to battle to claim the last few scraps of salvage and keep your faction alive for another day. You must strategically place a host of scavenged vehicles and exploit the last few remaining resources available in this barren world.
With the battle raging, you're going to have more to worry about than Tina Turner's Venue. Let's skip the rulebook. Wreck and Ruin can be best described as a hybrid between a board game and a tabletop wargame. Each player will take control of a faction of wasteland warriors and gain access to their vehicles and certain special abilities. You begin the game by setting up the board, by placing a series of randomly drawn hex pieces. Each player then places a range of coloured vehicles in one of the player's setup areas. These range from hulking big rigs that act as your base and really pack a punch, and nippy scouts that will zip across the sand. Each player will also gain a faction card that will give you access to a once per game power and really changes the direction of certain battles.
The game revolves around the strategic placement of movement of vehicles in order to capture the salvage sites. The game begins with 4 of these sites on the centre hex, but as each one is claimed, new sites will be discovered. They are not only the means by which you score points in the game, but also give you access to powerful salvage cards that give you access to abilities and gear later in the game. Once set up, you roll a dice to determine the starting player.
Each turn you will have 5 action points to spend on moving your vehicles, attacking your enemies, or searching for salvage. I'll begin by speeding towards one of the salvage sites with my buggy. By spending 1 AP, I can move this vehicle up to the move value listed on its stats. A basic move can only be made in the forward direction. This means I can move this buggy 6 hexes forward. Luckily, steering wheels did not disappear with the apocalypse and my vehicles can turn. My next AP will be spent in moving one of my scouts. In order to turn during a movement, the vehicle simply spends one of its points of movement in changing their direction by 1 hex face. If, while moving your vehicle, you end your movement on a salvage tile, you have captured it. Flip over the tile to the green side to indicate that it's uncontested. Provided I can make it to the end of the turn without either moving away or taking damage, I'll get to claim this tile and some salvage. I'll now finish my turn by spending my remaining points on moving these 3 vehicles.
Being a post-apocalyptic warlord isn't all about driving around the desert. Sometimes it comes down to good old-fashioned shooting. I will begin my turn by moving one of my vehicles into a position where I can line up my guns onto one of Paul's unwitting scouts. Each vehicle has its firepower trained in a forward arc of 3 hexes. All I have to do is get into range and open fire. I roll dice equal to my vehicle's attack value and attempt to beat the armour value of my chosen target. Each success is a point of damage. These are marked with a flame peg so the condition of the vehicle can be spotted at a glance. If you roll any 6s, such as this one, something has gone catastrophically wrong for your opponent as the shot has hit something vital. You get another free roll of the dice to see what further damage has taken place. If a vehicle is wrecked by taking damage, it continues to travel wildly or even explodes until it grinds to a halt. This is called crash and burn.
The player who controls the vehicle rolls 1 die and then compares it to the crash and burn table. In this case, the vehicle continues to move forward. I must roll the die again to see how far. It carries going another 4 spaces before it screeches to a halt.
Since this is a game of strategy, I need to use action points to ensure a better position on the board. Salvage and scrap are the bread and butter of our gangs. During your turn, you can use an action point to dig for salvage in the sand. Although an action point is a valuable resource, salvage cards have the ability to turn the tide of a fight. You draw one card from the salvage deck for each action point spent. The effects of the card are displayed on them in full.
With the first turn complete, we now assess the board. Both Matthew and I have captured salvage points that have remained uncontested. These can be removed from the board and claimed as victory points. For each token claimed in this way, we also get one salvage card. At the start of each turn, you move the turn marker on by 1. From the second turn onward, you also begin by drawing an event card. This is a twist in the environment that can affect our battle and can be anything from finding a hidden stash of weapons to an encroaching sandstorm. From this point in the game, we may now also play our salvage and faction cards. There are also a number of actions that we haven't mentioned that can be used to smash your way across the wasteland. Everything from going full throttle and risking engine damage to squeeze a bit more movement, to ramming your enemy in what could be an ingenious move to get them off a hex, or a foolhardy desperate attempt to finish off their big rig.
The game finishes at the end of the 6th turn. At this point, you tally up the salvage, with the winner being the person who has gained the most.
I've always historically been a big fan of tabletop wargaming, but time and financial investments for games such as 40k and War Machine can add a hefty barrier to these hobbies. Adding to that the requirement of at least one other player that has their own army, it's not hard to see why I don't get to indulge too often. Wreck and Ruin offers a superb answer to this problem, as it offers similar mechanics and strategy, but in a self-contained format that doesn't require each player to have already invested in the hobby. The fact that it's designed to play with up to 4 players can also potentially make it a more sociable alternative.
Wreck and Ruin is a very thematic game, whose every element, from its nifty miniatures to its range of available actions, draws you into this incredible post-apocalyptic setting. Considering the game we played was a prototype, this is no mean feat. The Wreck and Ruin Kickstarter will be running from the 3rd of October, so if racing around wastelands, shooting up your mates and fighting for survival sounds like your cup of tea, then please check out the link below.
That's it from us at Skip the Rulebook. If you enjoyed this video, please press like. If you want to hear more from Skip the Rulebook, press subscribe. You can also find out more about us on Facebook, Twitter and skiptherulebook.com.
Join us next time for your chance to jump into that new board game of yours without having to do any of that tedious rulebook reading.
See you later.